Hello and welcome back. Today I'm working on an assignment that I was given in class, in my drawing class, which was to draw a self-portrait of your eyes. So that's what I'm doing. I decided that I was going to try something completely out of my comfort zone in terms of material and style. I'm usually fairly precise with what I do. And I don't really like just feeling my way when it comes to a drawing. I do a lot of sketches. I do a lot of like precise line art. But I figured why not, because it's spooky month, try and do some like scared kind of looking eyes. And with that, I wanted to do a scared looking style of drawing. So I ended up doing like a really scratchy, messy, super interesting. It was actually really fun to do, like cross-hatched version of a self-portrait, and I did it in black and white, so that was interesting as well, as opposed to, trying to figure out my skin tone and all that. I also decided that I was going to use dip pens for the first time. I've never used them before, and what better time to learn to use them than in Inktober, right? I'm not exactly sure what the difference is between the dip pens and technical pens, just in terms of lines. They felt fairly similar to me. Of course, there was the difference in like pressure and I guess application. Maybe there was a little bit of free flow from the pen, a little bit more different than a technical pen, but for the most part, the main difference that I was looking for was like the scratchiness, because all of my technical pens kind of have a rounded edge to them, so I didn't want that. I wanted it to look super scratchy. And I was doing this off of a reference photo that I took specifically for this project, because I wanted, I don't take a lot of pictures of myself looking terrified, believe it or not. So I had done a version of this on my computer as well, just to kind of, because I am still trying to, plan things out and do sketches before actually having to sketch, and I didn't want to sketch the individual hatching lines because that wouldn't make any sense. So I did a digital version on my computer, and from that I used it to figure out where the different contours would be, where the different lines would be, what areas looked best, darkest. And the version on my computer actually looks more like me than this version. This doesn't look exactly like me. There's some differences in the shape of the eyes and stuff. But probably the biggest difference is in this portrait, I'm not wearing my glasses, and I'm basically always wearing my glasses. But I thought, to get the emotion across a little better and to avoid the conundrum of having to draw glasses, I would just do it glassesless. A rare look, but one I occasionally rock. It is a little weird drawing yourself, I guess, but I think it's a really good exercise in figuring out what facial features look like and what specific features make someone look like how they do, because you know your own face pretty well. So anytime you're drawing your face and you see that you've made something different, you can tell probably more easily than if you were just looking at a reference photo of a random person or a friend or whatever. But since you know your own face so well, you can go, this doesn't look like me and it's in the eyes, or this doesn't look like me and it's in the angle of my nose, or whatever. So I think drawing self-portraits is actually a really important thing to do as an artist. I think that's probably one of the best things you could do to develop your skills in portraiture a little more, is to draw yourself. And it's also kind of interesting in terms of like reflection on what you're making, because you're always behind the stuff you make and never in front of it. So actually drawing yourself is a little nerve-wracking. It's like getting up onto stage to perform or something, as opposed to hiding behind the curtains. But I really enjoyed it. I would love to draw myself again because I am a narcissist. But I guess I should talk a little bit about technically what I'm doing. I'm using 2 different dip pens, one large one and one small one. I don't know any of the tip numbers because I've never used dip pens before. But specifically I was using mostly the large one to get strokes like the eyelashes and the eyebrows, and the small one for most of the other lines because I felt like I had more control with that one. The main thing I wanted to really focus on was getting a high amount of contrast in this piece because there isn't any color. The only thing that would really give it any kind of depth is the different contrasting lines. So I don't really do a lot of hatching or anything like that. So this was kind of interesting for that as well, and learning to like follow the contours of the face and how the shadows would move and stuff I thought was really interesting as well. I think one of these eyes is more open than the other, and it kind of bothered me a little bit while I was working on it. I was trying to fix that up now, but it wasn't a big enough deal for me to really like throw everything out and start over because they still looked fairly matching, and also your facial expressions aren't symmetrical, so it was accurate despite, you know, not being fully accurate to the photo. I was so mad. I just dropped ink on my desk and I had to run out and get a nail polish remover to clean it up, but I also dropped a drop of ink right on my drawing, right in the eye on the right hand side, and it makes me so mad, but it's okay. You know, it happens when you're learning a new material, and with something as sort of not precise as what I'm doing, I think little mistakes like that are a touch more acceptable than if I was trying really hard to make this super realistic or super clean or super minimal, in which case that kind of drop would stand out a lot more than it does in all these hatch lines. Also, my hair in this looks a lot like I have a Karen hairstyle. I promise I don't. But it looks so much like I've got that classic Karen do. I really wanted to make the background sort of the hatchiest, darkest part. I do some stuff later on that I don't know if I like or not. I think I do, but I'm still on the fence. You guys will have to let me know if I totally ruined it later on. You'll see what I do. But yeah, I'm using the thicker brush to really make those lines look hatched and dark. And that thicker brush I had to dip back like every 3 or 4 strokes just because I was using so much ink, I suppose. I'm not 100% sure how dip pens work, so I don't even know if I was using them correctly. I might have been using them wrong the entire time. But it was a fun experience, and I would like to use them again. I'm just a messy person, so oftentimes things like technical pens are a little bit easier for me because, you know, I feel like I have a bit more control of the medium. But with something like this, you know, having a little bit less control might have been a good thing. The hair was very, very difficult because I wasn't able to, get large strokes of ink with the brushes that I had. I was using the biggest brush that I had. I have like a set of 6, I think. But I still wasn't really able to get thick lines, so I had to keep going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And I also think another little thing that I messed up is the curvature of the face, where the hair is ending. I think it was supposed to be a little bit straighter than it was, and I do try like changing it up a little bit by making it straighter, but in that I made it kind of smaller, and that might have made the face overall look smaller. But seeing as the focus of the piece is really the eyes, I think that having a little bit of distortion in the face might not have been the worst thing in the world, you know? And it might even have made it look a bit more like a fisheye effect. Not quite, but sort of like that. And I'm actually really happy with how the hair turned out. It was really soft looking and interesting, like feathery. But I do something with a paintbrush that I'm just not 100% sure about. I can't say I regret it because I like the way it looks now as well. But I did really like this, and I don't know if I should have stopped while I still had the chance, but yeah, the ink was surprisingly good for getting like a feathery, soft looking texture. And I've never like had that easy a time making any hair look like it has been, you know, cut, as opposed to just being soft and cartoony. I thought that the hair could use a little bit more contrast than the face. So I actually got a paintbrush and a little bit of water, and I was going to paint over it, but the ink acted in a way I wasn't expecting, actually. It picked up with the water. Like, the water reactivated the ink. So it ended up being a lot darker than I was going for. I was just going to try like a very, very light wash. But because it picked up the ink, it became such a dark thing that it was actually a little bit hard to manage. So that's one of the reasons why I was like a little bit on the fence about whether or not I liked it. But at the point where I started it, I couldn't really stop. I went in and made the pupils much, much darker because I feel like that draws the focus down to the eyes a bit more if, you know, everything is super scratchy. But you just have these like solid dark circles for the pupils. I think that really, really drew the attention back down to the eyes. This eye also looks, the eye on the right also is supposed to be watering a little bit. And I kind of accidentally went over that with some things, but I took some acrylic paint and lightened it back up. So here I am throwing some water on that background hatching, which I'm okay with because it darkened it up to the point where I really wanted it to be, but you can still see the texture of the hatching underneath, and it's the same with the hair when I put it on there. And it kind of came about as an accident. I was trying to even up that edge, and then it just escalated and escalated and escalated. I was like, oh no, this is terrible. But one of the reasons like I kind of don't like it is because it ended up looking a little bit patchy, but I didn't want to keep throwing water on it because this isn't a mixed media paper that I'm using. It's drawing paper, so it doesn't hold water very well. And in addition to that, I didn't want to keep picking up the ink, so I just kind of let it be patchy, but I think it suits the overall aesthetic of it being like kind of messy, kind of off the cuff, spur of the moment scratchy. But yeah, this is basically it. So I would like to thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please leave a like. If you want to see more things that I do in the future, please subscribe. Links to my social media will be in the description down below. And I hope you have a lovely day and all that jazz.